痛哭六军俱缟素，冲冠一怒为红颜。
8 words. That is all it took to write a woman out of history and into legend, and to write an empire out of existence. For 300 years, this couplet has been China's most repeated explanation for the fall of the Ming dynasty. The emperor is dead. The dynasty is ended. And it happened because one general, Wu Sangui, could not bear that his woman had been taken from him. But the truth? Wu Sangui did not betray an empire for a woman. He betrayed an empire for power. And then poets wrote a woman into the story so he wouldn't have to answer for it. Let me tell you what really happened. In the spring of 1644, the Chongguan emperor stood on Coal Hill behind the Forbidden City. The rebels were inside the city walls. His officials had fled. His empire had dissolved around him like water through fingers. He hanged himself from a tree. The Ming dynasty, 277 years old, was over. And one man was about to decide what came next. General Wu Sangui commanded the garrison at Chongguan, the eastern gate of the Great Wall. He had an army. He held the passage between the Manchu north and the Chinese heartland. And when he heard that Beijing had fallen, he did what any smart warlord would do. He went to read the situation. He was not rushing home to save anyone. He was calculating which side would make him more powerful. On his way to Beijing, Wu Sangui received news that changed everything. His father, Wu Jia, had been captured by Zicheng's forces. His family compound had been raided, and Chen Yuanyuan had been taken. She had become his concubine sometime before 1644. She was originally named Chen Yuanyuan, a courtesan from Suzhou, renowned for her beauty and her singing. Powerful men had passed her between themselves like a valuable painting, first to the imperial harem as a gift, then into the possession of Wu Sangui. She had never chosen any of this. She belonged to whoever held the most power. Now she was in the hands of Lu Zongmin, one of Li Zicheng's most brutal commanders. Wu Sangui turned his horse around and rode back to Chongguan. Within weeks, he opened the gates of the Great Wall to the Manchu army. He rode south with them. Beijing fell again. The Ming, what little remained, was finished. And that is the story that the poem made eternal. The angry general, the stolen beauty, the empire lost. Here is what the poem does not tell you. Wu Sangui's father had already been taken hostage before Wu Sangui learned about Chen Yuanyuan. Wu Jia was a bargaining chip in Li Zicheng's political game. Seize the general's family, secure the general's loyalty. Standard war practice in 1644. Wu Sangui's household had been stripped of its wealth. Li Zicheng's forces were systematically confiscating property from Beijing's elite. Wu Sangui was not arriving as a potential partner. He was arriving as a potential victim. And Wu Sangui, who had survived the treacherous court politics of the late Ming, who had navigated faction, corruption, and military decay, was not the kind of man who sacrificed everything for one woman. He was the kind of man who sacrificed everything for himself. Look at what he actually did after he opened the gates to the Manchus. He served the Qing dynasty for 10 years. He was given a title, land, and power. And then, when the Qing court tried to reduce his authority, he rebelled. He declared himself emperor. He started a war. He died in 1678 still fighting. Wu Sangui spent his entire life playing power games. Chen Yuanyuan was not his motivation. She was his excuse. Now let me tell you what actually killed the Ming dynasty, because it was not a woman, and it was not one general's bad day in 1644. The Ming had been dying for a century and a half. In 1421, the Yongle emperor moved the capital from Nanjing to Beijing. He built the Forbidden City. He launched the treasure fleets. He looked invincible. And in doing so, he concentrated all power in one city, the northern city, far from the economic heartland of the south. The Ming military was placed permanently at the frontier, fighting wars the central government could not pay for. For 150 years before the fall, the Ming court was consumed by the same internal wars. The eunuchs against the civil officials, the factions within factions, the emperors who would not govern and the ministers who could not. The treasury bled dry. The soldiers' wages went unpaid. The generals became warlords. Then came the Little Ice Age. The temperatures dropped. The monsoons failed. The floods came. The harvests collapsed. In the 1630s and 1640s, China was swept by famine, locust plagues, and epidemic. Peasants who could not feed their families became rebels. The rebel armies, Li Zicheng Zhang Xianzhong, grew from gangs of starving farmers into forces that could take cities. By 1644, the Ming system had not merely weakened. It had failed. Completely. Systemically. Structurally. Li Zicheng walking into Beijing was not the cause of the Ming's collapse. It was the symptom. Wu Sangui knew this. Every educated man in China knew this. The dynasty had been dying for 150 years. And on the day Li Zicheng entered Beijing, Wu Sangui faced a straightforward calculation: join Li Zicheng as a subordinate, with his family held hostage and his future uncertain, or join the Manchus, use their military power to carve out his own domain, and wait for his moment. Chen Yuanyuan was mentioned in that calculation. She was not the calculation. And then Wu Meiyuan wrote the poem. Wu Meiyuan, also known as Wu Zhan, was a poet and a former official who served under Wu Sangui's patronage after the defection. Around 1651, 7 years after the event, he composed the poem that would define Chen Yuanyuan forever.
痛哭六军俱缟素，冲冠一怒为红颜。
The armies wept in white mourning. The cockscomb flared in rage for a red-faced beauty. It is a brilliant piece of misdirection. It takes the most treasonous act in Chinese history, a general inviting a foreign army into his homeland, and transforms it into a love story. Wu Sangui did not betray the Ming. He was a man driven mad by the theft of the woman he loved. How romantic. How understandable. How much easier to forgive than the truth being. Wu Sangui weighed his options, calculated his interests, and chose power over country. Chen Yuanyuan had almost nothing to do with it. Wu Meiyuan wrote the poem as a gift to Wu Sangui. As a court poet serves his patron, the general wanted to be remembered as a lover, not a traitor. The poet obliged. And 300 years later, school children in China still memorize the couplet without ever asking, why did it serve Wu Sangui's interests so perfectly to be remembered as a man destroyed by love? Chen Yuanyuan disappeared after the war. There is no record of her death. No official account. The histories, which blamed her for an empire's fall, had no interest in what happened to her afterward. What we know is this. After Wu Sangui's campaigns, she retired to a Buddhist convent. She took the Dharma name jigging stillness. She lived quietly until she died, a woman erased from power, erased from consequence, and carrying alone the weight of a story she never asked to be part of. She had been shaped by men. She had been claimed by men. She had been blamed by men. And then she vanished, and the men who had used her wrote the history. There is a cruelty in the Wu Meiyuan poem that I want you to feel before we finish. 8 characters. Chongguan yinu wei hongyan. The cockscomb flares in rage for a beauty. It is so clean, so simple, so satisfying. An explanation for the inexplicable. How does a 300-year empire simply end? One man, one woman, one moment of passion. The truth: structural collapse, climate disaster, military decay. A general's calculated betrayal is ugly, complicated, difficult to tell. But a woman's face? That everyone understands. The Ming did not fall because of Chen Yuanyuan. The Ming fell because the men who were supposed to hold it together, the generals, the court, the factions, the emperor on the hill, could not. Chen Yuanyuan was not the cause. She was the cover story. And here is the question I will leave you with. If one woman could truly topple an empire, what does that say about the empire? And what does it say about the men who built it?